Welcome to Jobbed Out, the wrestling editorial that reminds you that if you can't get through to them with words, maybe try a chainsaw. Just a heads up, there's going to be some political talk in this video. Sorry, it can't be avoided. Let's just try to get through this. Many years ago, I'd put a video together showcasing some of the lamest factions in the entire history of the WWE, completely unaware of what was to come in this business. Based loosely on a warped view of a real-life tragedy and made into a complete and total mockery by its end, it's time to talk about a real contender for lamest faction of all time, because today, in wrestling history, August 3rd, 2020, Monday Night Raw presented from the WWE Performance Center. We're a few months into the COVID era. WWE has survived the empty arena period of time and begun planting the crowd with trainees and members of the NXT roster. It was definitely an awkward time in wrestling, as big companies had no idea how to deal with the silence, and the growing pains were just as deafening, because their way of operating was completely out the window. So in trying new things on the fly, they had some bugs and errors that, in all honesty, kind of made the shows a little embarrassing.
We've seen them go head-to-head with the OC, and this is kind of awkward.
In an attempt to stop the hemorrhaging of viewers as ratings tumbled, and finding a way to write these technical issues into a story so they can pretend that they were in on it all along, Austin, WWE introduces both Raw Underground, a somewhat less edgier fight club with a name stolen from Lucha Underground and a concept stolen from GCW's Bloodsport, as well as a new faction. A group of mysterious hooded figures absolutely disgruntled with the WWE machine and everybody who feeds it. The general belief is that this was supposed to mirror the real-world actions of protesters who had gotten violent during the Black Lives Matter marches, which themselves were protests with regard to police brutality in the USA. There is this weird warped view out there that anybody who supported the BLM people were themselves looters, rioters, and even terrorists, because not wanting to be killed in the middle of the street by the people who are protecting you makes you the bad guy. This is where a whole different argument about Antifa began, which I'm not going to go too deep into, except Antifa's not a group, no matter how badly Fox News needs you to think that there's an evil terrorist organization of radical, liberal, left-leaning millennials. If there was, you'd be able to destroy them by getting rid of their favorite Starbucks drinks. Anyway, our first taste of this group came in the form of security footage, where the group was seen throwing molotov cocktails at a conveniently unprotected generator. I mean, take a look, the air conditioning right next to it has protection, and they could have just cut the cables that they were standing over, but I digress. That's really pretty much it. That's Retribution's debut, and it was weak as hell. I mean, clearly the Molotovs didn't work because the show still went on with no issues. And if you think about it, that's actually a shame, because issues might have made Raw less boring. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments, and be sure to subscribe, because yeah, I know, it's far from over, so let's just keep going. So Smackdown, August 7th, the group, who now has the name Retribution, finally manages to get inside the building. Damn, this is a step up from a bunch of cryptic tweets. As the show is coming to a close, we see Retribution storm the arena with weapons in hand despite the ring being empty and there being no match going on. At first, just looking like the kind of goof fans that try to jump the barricades, they begin turning their attention to commentary and even intimidating the camera crew away.
Oh, this is our house now! This is our house now! You might want to leave!
If that's not Mustafa Ali, I'll buy a hat and eat it. After emptying the performer side of the arena, Retribution turns to the planted fans and takes them down. Now that is different. Not unlike the Nexus debut, the new group proceeds to trash the place with spray paint and even brings out a chainsaw. I'm not gonna lie, this was not the worst way to make an impression. It had been over a decade since we saw Nexus tear ringside apart, and at least in comparison to what the shows had been like recently, this was a refreshing change. Now the real shame here is the group was so poorly written that this was their highlight. It's all downhill from here. And it cannot be stated enough here, the WWE was still 2 weeks away from debuting the Thunderdome. So wouldn't it have made sense for this attack and destruction of the Performance Center to happen right before moving to the new venue? Nah, that's crazy talk. Next week's shows perfectly fine in the PC, no biggie, they got more ropes. Over the next few weeks, Retribution would continue to screw with the people backstage, mess with the production truck, use the Sabu entrance so that they could attack wrestlers in the ring. Guess Retribution has somebody working the lights for them. Then they began losing most of their members faster than the Dark Order lost their creepers, until they were a group of 5, then 4, then 5 again when they'd reveal Mustafa Ali as their leader. The basic explanation that the group gave was that they were all underutilized NXT talents who wanted to stick it to the company for letting them down. This, not gonna lie, disappointed me the most, considering if anybody would want Retribution, you think it would be the wrestling talents who were furloughed in the springtime when the WWE stripped a bunch of these talents of their job security right at the beginning of lockdown. You couldn't have rehired 3 or 4 of them and put them in this group? Christ. I don't even know where to go on from this either, because it just seems like at every possible turn, the WWE was met with a right way and a wrong way to handle this faction, and they would take the wrong way on purpose. They revealed their members, under masks, with different names, so that the NXT thing made no sense to anybody who wasn't already in the loop. If Mia Yim is seeking retribution because she's getting held back in NXT, why would you call her Reckoning? Call her Mia Yim. The backstory is built in. If Dio Madden wants revenge after literally being beaten out of his role on the Raw commentary team, why call him Mace? Call him Dio Madden! Or at least call him Madden, since the WWE likes cutting names so much anyway. Then, they started having matches. And you would think that the newly formed group that's been disrupting the show for months, who were beating people down left and right, would get a strong push, but hell no. They lost in their debut for an eye poke of all things, and they'd continue to lose until the group's inner frustration became the story. Ultimately, half of them would turn their backs on leader Ali, and the other half would straight up beat him down. Retribution disbanded in March, with Mace and T-Bar still being a for-hire team, Ali becoming a babyface again alongside Mansoor, and the two groups trading wins back and forth because nothing that ever touched the Retribution name had any value. Mia Yim's been barely seen on TV since the group disbanded, and I don't think Shane Thorne's been seen once. Arguably, the only member who wasn't tainted by Retribution was Mercedes Martinez, who had the foresight to quit the group early on and stay in NXT as herself. So that is the quick and easy story of Retribution. They had no big wins, no titles, their biggest contribution was making the Hurt Business look legit, only for the Hurt Business to disband shortly after, and their memory reduced to a punchline of, how can we make fun of Antifa on our wrestling show? Now with that said, is Retribution the lamest faction of all time? No, they're not. Because the #1 lamest faction of all time, as named in my video before, was still considerably more impotent. They accomplished less. But I can say with full confidence that from the Raw debut, which was in poor taste, to the bad writing, to the masks, to the matches, to the names, to even how the group split, Retribution is easily more lame than the core. So I'll let Chris Jericho tell you their position.
Who are you? The new #2. Who was #1?
You're gonna have to check that video to find out. So after all that, I do want to ask you, what did you think of Retribution in the WWE? When they debuted, did you think that they had potential? What do you think was the moment where it all went wrong? And how would you have booked them to turn out better? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to the channel for more, because I want you to be a part of this conversation too. For now though, I better get my shoulders off the mat, so thank you for tuning in to Jobbed Out. I'll catch you next time.